Oh my girl, we're back. Oh my God, we're back again. All my brothers, sisters, everybody sang. Spooky Sunday dinners, spooky Sunday dinners, spooky Sunday dinners. I still can't afford a theme song. Hey guys, for those of you that don't know, my name is Johnny Taylor, and this is Spooky Sunday Dinners, where every Sunday, every other Sunday, maybe take a month off, Thursday will happen. We talk about a true crime case that I just really want to talk about while we make a fairly easy recipe. So, if true crime, cooking, and dark humor is your thing, you might want to hit that subscribe button below. Hi, sorry, we're back. I took a break. I needed a break. No, this has nothing to do with Jeffrey Dahmer coming to me in a dream and threatening me and telling me to stop doing these. It has everything to do with that. But whatever, we're back. If he gets me, he gets me. It was weird. I don't want to talk about it. I might schedule a therapy appointment. But I don't know. Hey, Jeff, did you see I got a new knife? But yes, we're back. These will be weekly again. Or bi-weekly. I don't know. Hop off. Also, it's only right that we talk about my shirt, because it's a spooky Sunday dinner shirt. Horror Daddy Apparel made this. It's kind of my new favorite thing, and I'm probably going to wear it every day, so I probably should get another one, but I will be sure to link them down below, their Instagram and their online shop. And yeah, check them out. They have some really fun, spooky, offensive t-shirts that I love, so you'll love. Or hate. I don't know. I forgot how to do this. We should probably just do it. So this week we are talking about a case that I have been obsessed with since it happened. I remember it happening and reading about it in the news and not believing it, and it's just, honestly, I thought I already did it, and we gotta talk about it. We gotta go over it. So yeah, it's Gypsy Rose Blanchard. The murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. Dee Dee Blanchard, if you will. And while putting this whole episode together, I was trying to figure out what to make with it. And so I did some research and tried to find out, what Gypsy's favorite food was. And then it hit me. The feeding tube she didn't need. So I took the liberty to just come up with one this week that I couldn't eat either. And that's why this week we're gonna be making dog treats. Reindeer food. I don't know, it felt right. So if you have a dog, you're welcome. If you don't have a dog, add some sugar to them. You can eat them too. I don't know. But before we learn how to make them, let's, do the thing. It's Karen disclaimer time. Hi, Karen. Did you miss me? I didn't miss you. Karen disclaimer number 1. These are not professional recipes. I don't have the nutritional facts for these, and they're not really for nutritional value. They're not even for humans. So, if you make these and you don't like them, or you fuck up and get sick, it's not my fault. There's 5 ingredients in this one, so that's on you. Again, not professional. Barely mediocre. Not even human food this week. Karen disclaimer number 2. This is spooky Sunday dinners. Emphasis on spooky. We talk about true crime, murder, disease, and just all messed up things, while we sprinkle a nice little bit of comedy on top, because that's how I cope with being obsessed with something so dark. If that offends you in any way, shape, or form, make sure you want to call, text, DM, or email me to let me know that I'm a terrible person. I don't care, Karen. My dog loves me. I don't need you. Now that that's done, here's what we need. About 2.5 cups of rice flour. I'm going to be using rice flour for my dog because somebody told me to use rice flour for my dog. About 3/4 cup of canned pumpkin. I'm just going with some classic Libby's. You can really use as much pumpkin as your heart desires. Dogs and reindeer love it. About 3-ish tablespoons of peanut butter. Again, as much as you want to give your dog. 2 eggs and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and salt. As we make this dough, we can also add water to it to make it a little bit easier to handle. I usually don't, but it's an option if you can't handle it. Be sure to preheat your oven to 350, and I'm lazy, so I'm gonna throw all of this in my KitchenAid and tell you about this stuff. So, Gypsy Rose was born July 27th, 1991 in Golden Meadow, Louisiana. And she was born to Claudine, aka Dee Dee, and Ron Blanchard. But really quick, we need to go back and talk about Dee Dee. Dee Dee was born on May 3rd, 1967, and she had 5 siblings, and all 5 of her siblings absolutely hated her guts. Growing up, she had a few issues with petty theft, and she was known to be like quite the liar. She ended up becoming a nurse's aide and clearly was not so good at it. And it was even speculated that she had something to do with her mother's death. They said that she was denying her mother food and was being physically abusive to her. When Dee Dee was 24 years old, she actually ended up pregnant with 17-year-old Ron Blanchard's baby. And the fact that we don't talk about the fact that he was 17 years old really bothers me, because she basically got pregnant from a kid. But nobody cared, I guess, then. And they ended up married because that's just what you did when you got pregnant, I guess. They ended up separating shortly before Gypsy was born. And then, of course, Dee Dee has Gypsy, and that's when Dee Dee and Gypsy actually go to live with Dee Dee's father and her stepfather. And when Gypsy was about 3 months old, Dee Dee had already started talking about possible issues that she had. She swore at 3 months that the baby had sleep apnea. Obviously, the doctors were like, your 3-month-old baby does not have sleep apnea, and Dee Dee was absolutely sure that there was something wrong with Gypsy. And Dee Dee came up with her own theory that it was an unspecified chromosomal disorder, and she had Gypsy at the emergency room all the time as a baby. Just any little thing happened or nothing at all happened, and they had a bed in the emergency room. When Gypsy was around 7 or 8 years old, she ended up going out with her grandpa on his motorcycle, and they got into an extremely minor accident, like really just nothing. And Gypsy had a small abrasion on her knee. Again, doctor said it was nothing. Dee Dee decided that Gypsy had like extensive issues with her knee after this and had to go through all of these surgeries she came up with so that Gypsy could ever walk again. And this is when Gypsy starts basically living life in a wheelchair. Dee Dee did not allow her to walk, starting with this accident. This is also around the time that Dee Dee is actually able to start lying about Gypsy's age to constantly make her younger. So she would take Gypsy places when Gypsy was 10, say she was 8. She would just consistently do it until Gypsy got younger and younger, and no one really questioned it, right? So she pulls Gypsy out of school in the 2nd grade and decides that she's going to, quote, homeschool her herself. There's actually a story where Gypsy actually teaches herself to read by reading the Harry Potter books, because her mom never actually was going to teach the kid anything. And at this time, Dee Dee is not doing well herself. She gets arrested around town a couple of times. She's like writing bad checks, she's stealing stuff, and it's just not the bee's knees for them. Dee Dee's stepmother actually starts getting really sick, and they think she has some sort of chronic illness that is pretty much killing her. And they come to find out that Dee Dee is actually putting ground up weed killer in her food and like trying to kill her stepmom. Obviously that doesn't go well when confronted, and Dee Dee ends up taking Gypsy and moving out. And that's when they start to live in like public housing and use most of their government money, because Gypsy at this time was believed to be disabled. And Dee Dee was actually getting around $1,200 a month in child support from Ron. So living in public housing, not really having to worry about paying bills, and they thought that they were just set for life, right? At this time, Dee Dee actually starts convincing doctors that Gypsy has leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and she's having several seizures. Like she's just seizing all the time. And I don't know why, but the doctors are just like, yeah, seems legit. Let's just give her a bunch of meds for it. So they put Gypsy on all kinds of meds that basically just like space her out. And Dee Dee even convinces them to put a feeding tube in Gypsy. Now, this is awful because if you do not need a feeding tube and you are given a feeding tube, first of all, imagine that. Second of all, you're not eating. So there's something weird where you're not like salivating properly along with the seizure medication, and this is what's causing Gypsy's teeth to like rot and fall out. So because her teeth are rotting and falling out, Dee Dee's like, yeah, cool, pull them out. We'll just put some like dentures in her, and like later we'll get her veneers and stuff. It's really messed up. I don't like it. But Dee Dee's doing it to basically make Gypsy look as young and as sick as possible. Our dough is mixed together. It's actually pretty sticky, so if you do end up wanting to add a little bit of water to it, I normally don't. I'm just gonna take an ice cream scoop and evenly spread it on a cookie sheet. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina actually wipes out Gypsy and Dee Dee's kind of living situation, and if you remember, everyone's in that area. And this actually gave Dee Dee the perfect opportunity to, quote, lose all of Gypsy's medical records, her birth certificate, all the information about how sick or if Gypsy was really sick. And Dee Dee could basically just come up with Gypsy having any illness in the book at this point. And along with having any illness in the book, Dee Dee can make Gypsy any age she wants. And Gypsy is so heavily medicated that she doesn't know what's going on, and she actually, for like 15 years of her life, I believe, didn't even know how old she really was. By recommendation of like a doctor at a shelter or something, Dee Dee and Gypsy end up moving to Missouri. And after staying in a rental home for I think like a couple of months, Dee Dee actually scams Habitat for Humanity into actually building them a home. And it had like a wheelchair ramp, a hot tub. I don't know why that was needed, but they built them like a very nice small home. Along with the freebies she got from Habitat for Humanity, she also ended up getting free flights to go to hospitals. They scammed Make-A-Wish Foundation into letting them go to Disney World, a Carrie Underwood concert to meet her. I don't know. And they got to stay at like the Ronald McDonald houses when she was going for her treatments and like her doctor's appointments and stuff. So they were getting all of this free stuff, their government money, and still getting their child support from Ron. And Ron, who is now remarried, really wanted to be in Gypsy's life and visit her. But it was impossible for him to do that because Dee Dee told everybody like in their area, everybody with these different foundations, that Gypsy's dad was actually an abusive, drug-addicted, alcoholic, like horrible man that just couldn't come to terms with the fact that Gypsy was sick. And everyone believed Gypsy and Dee Dee, and like how could they not? They looked like this perfect all-American family that had these really bad hardships. I mean, Gypsy was barely 5 feet tall. She was in a wheelchair, no teeth, these huge, huge glasses, and actually didn't have any hair. Dee Dee told Gypsy that her seizure medication was going to cause all of her hair to fall out, so they might as well shave it anyway. But then when they went into public, Dee Dee told everybody that Gypsy's head was shaved because of her chemo, for her fake leukemia. Luckily, around this time, they actually go to a different and new neurologist. They're like, oh, she has muscular dystrophy. He's like, where are your records? They were lost in Katrina, blah, blah, blah. He goes to do her examination, and they do like a biopsy, which obviously comes back negative for muscular dystrophy. But then he notices that Gypsy's in a wheelchair, but she has muscles in her legs. Muscles that clearly show she has been walking. But when Dee Dee, she's like, no, Gypsy would never do that. She totally denied it. The doctor decides that he's going to write in his notes he suspects something called Munchausen by proxy. Dee Dee finds out about this, and she never takes Gypsy for any more appointments with him, no follow-ups, no nothing. And when he tries to report it, everyone basically says that he's like, it's not possible. They would never ever do that. All right, so I just kind of flattened these down a bit, and we're gonna throw them in the oven for about 40-ish minutes, or until the top of them starts to crack. So if you don't know, Munchausen by proxy is like having Munchausens, where you find like sympathy and validation through like illness and sickness, but by proxy, so like for someone else. So for your child, for someone you're caring for usually. It's normally really common in young children, and the elderly are normally victims of it. So this whole time that they're getting freebies and doing fun things, Gypsy actually loves to go to sci-fi and fantasy conventions. She loves to dress up as the different characters and go do meet and greets, cosplay, all the fun stuff. And in 2011, at one of those, I think it was like WonderCon or something, she actually ends up meeting a guy that she it kind of sounds like she maybe had a crush on, didn't really act on it, but he became a close friend. And this is when she starts to confide in him that, you know, she's in a wheelchair, she has a shaved head, but she can walk just fine. She's able to eat just fine, and she doesn't have to shave her head because she knows her hair is growing in. This guy doesn't totally understand what's going on, but kind of acts like, oh, I'll be your Prince Charming. They talk a little bit, and Gypsy ends up escaping her home and going to either this guy's apartment or his hotel room. The stories kind of conflict, but unfortunately Dee Dee finds all of this information on Gypsy's computer and how she's been talking to him and the whole paper trail basically. So Dee Dee shows up wherever this guy is with Gypsy and shows up with one of the many fake birth certificates. And this birth certificate at the time says that Gypsy's like 12 to 14, and she accuses the guy of being a pedophile, says that Gypsy lies, and she needs to be taken home right away. Dee Dee gets Gypsy back home. She straps her back in her wheelchair, and she proceeds to smash her computer and her phone, all of her electronics, with a hammer. Then turns to Gypsy and lets her know if she ever tries that again, she will smash all of Gypsy's fingers with that same hammer. Dee Dee was no stranger to inflicting physical abuse. Remember, she like killed people, but nobody like cared? I guess we're just gonna like let that slide. But she always like really weirdly had her hand like on Gypsy's like shoulder or like on her hand. Like she's always touching Gypsy so that she could do that like weird mom like squeeze or like pinch or like nail dig. Like, you know when you're at the grocery store and some kid comes up to you and says like just some off the wall stuff like mommy and daddy hate each other, and then the mom comes up and like does a little like pinch like a little squeeze? Yeah, Dee Dee was like, that's how her and Gypsy like communicated. And Gypsy knew as soon as her mom started squeezing, pinching, nails, that she needed to just like STFU. God, I love kids that do that. You know, they just like come up to you out of nowhere and they're like, mommy stole this. And you're like, so fast forward about a year later. Oh man. I haven't burped in weeks. Thank you for getting that out of me. Never forget. You give me gas. Anyway, it's 2012. Gypsy gets another computer, or like access to a computer, and this is where she ends up meeting Nicholas Godejohn, aka Nick. And they say that they meet in some like Christian singles group. I don't know. We should probably ask like Christian Mingle if they did this. It's not very holy. But anyway, they meet and they end up like online dating. Like they really like each other, right? And he is around her real age, which at this time we're not really sure, and neither is she. We're thinking like between 19 and 21, but who knows? And Nick had some like past weird criminal charges. He had like one for indecent exposure, and he also suffered from dissociative personality disorder and autism. And Gypsy not knowing her real age and not understanding it was something that Dee Dee was like really, really weird and like almost passionate about. I don't know. For example, there's a story where her dad Ron actually called once for her 18th birthday and was like, hey, I want to wish Gypsy a happy 18th birthday. And Dee Dee was like, shut up, she's 14. and went on this whole story where she said that like Gypsy was mentally 14. So Dee Dee had to just go along with it. And they had a 14th birthday for Gypsy. So she kind of had Ron convinced that the people around them knew this, but they all just went along with it, when really she was lying to everyone. But I also think this was around the time Gypsy started to understand how old she was. She was interested in boys. She met this guy. Like, she was starting to kind of put it all together, I guess. And she actually goes to tell her neighbor, who's kind of like a big sister to her, but really they were a lot closer to the same age than either of them knew. But she basically tells this girl, like, hey, I met this guy online. I really, really like him. We've created Facebook pages. This is how we talk. And starts to confide in this girl that they're in love. They're thinking about eloping. And Gypsy has started to pick out baby names. She also goes on to confide in this girl that Nick is introducing Gypsy to BDSM. This girl who's like early 20s, has the big sister role, tells Gypsy like, this isn't smart. You don't know who you're meeting online. There's a lot of predators. Like, you need to just cool it with this, right? Tell your mom the truth. Tell everybody what's going on. And Gypsy just didn't want to hear it. She was like, I'm in love. I'll do anything for this guy. A typical like early 20s idiot. Like, we all know that girl. But Nick starts to like really heavily make Gypsy like participate in like weird online BDSM stuff. And you have to remember that Gypsy has been sheltered to the point where she's not even allowed to eat food. Like, she has a feeding tube. She can't walk. She's been sheltered her whole life. So imagine somebody that's been sheltered and doesn't know her own age, thinks she might be like 15. Her first sexual experience is someone teaching her about BDSM. Probably not the way to go. Nick also goes on to like tell her about his personality disorder and says that he has something crazy like 9 different personalities and he needs like 9 different girlfriends. So like Gypsy has to have wigs and outfits and like accents to be each different girlfriend that he needs. And there was something about like one of them was like a little kid, one of them was like a bad girl. It was just, this girl is forever not okay when it comes to that part of her life, because who would be? What, Nick? Why? Why? That's weird. I mean, not to like, no one should kink shame, but that's not right. But Gypsy is like obsessed with him. Like, he is her everything. And she was like, okay, he has to meet my mom. Like, he has to figure out how to, we need to do this, right? So Gypsy comes up with this genius plan, right? She's gonna send Nick some money. He's gonna come on a bus and they're gonna have like a meet cute at a movie theater. The plan is Gypsy and her mom go to a movie and Nick is just gonna randomly show up at the movie and they're gonna strike up a conversation in line for like snacks or something. And from there, she's hoping, of course, that her mom's just gonna think that Nick is the best guy ever. They're gonna sit together in the movie. Everything's gonna be great, right? So Gypsy and her mom go to the movie theater and they're gonna go see the live action Cinderella. Nick shows up, they strike up a conversation, and I can't really argue with Dee Dee on this one because she was like, this is a grown-ass man here to see Cinderella alone in the middle of the day. Like, and also at this time, Gypsy did look like she was, you need to look up photos because she looked like she was like 11 years old. So it looks bad. It looks like this is like a grown-ass man going to see like a very girly kids movie, middle of the day, and like flirting with what looks like a disabled child. Like, maybe Dee Dee wasn't super wrong in being like, what the hell, get away from us. Absolutely not. Should have thought it out a little bit better. Like, maybe see like not a Disney movie. Maybe. But halfway through the movie, Gypsy's like, hey mom, I have to go to the bathroom. And Dee Dee actually lets Gypsy go to the bathroom. So she like wheels herself to the bathroom, right? Meets Nick in the bathroom. They do like the nasty, like in the bathroom at the movie theater. This is a true story, you guys. don't forget, in the bathroom at the movie theater, and then like go back to the movie. And her mom never knew. I don't even know like what to say about that. So after like the meet and greet didn't go so well, Gypsy's mom was like obviously mean to Nick. I would have been too at this point. Not saying that, you know, I side with Dee Dee at all. She's a horrible person, but you know, maybe that could have gone a little bit better, but they're both like really offended and they're angry, and Gypsy's like, I wish I could just kill my mom, and Nick is like, cool, let's do it. Like, one of my like alter egos is a killer, like let's do it. And so Gypsy's going along with it, and Gypsy's like, yeah, let's do it. I don't know. But the abuse does get worse and worse, and it's getting really hard for Gypsy to handle any of it. So her and Nick kind of come up with this plan of like how he can do it, the weapon that they'll use, and they're both starting to really think that this is something they're gonna do. So in June of 2015, I guess Gypsy like sends Nick more money, and he travels back and meets up with Gypsy, right? So here's the story. Dee Dee goes to bed, and she took like a lot of sleeping pills and stuff, so she was like out like a light, right? Gypsy lets Nick into her home and gives him a knife, duct tape, and gloves. It's going down. Nick instructs Gypsy to go to the bathroom, cover her ears. So she like covers her ears. Nick goes into Dee Dee's room and proceeds to stab Dee Dee several times while she's sleeping. Gypsy does hear Dee Dee like call out for her, and she doesn't, you know, Dee Dee doesn't know. She thinks Gypsy can call 911 and help, but Gypsy listens to Dee Dee scream until she doesn't scream anymore. Nick comes back, lets Gypsy know that he did it. They proceed to go to Gypsy's room, do the nasty again, take $4,000 that Dee Dee had saved in the house, pack their bags, and like GTFO. They proceed to like hotel hop for a few days. And in the middle of all this, they actually mail the murder weapon to Nick's home in Wisconsin, where he's from, right? So that they won't find it at the scene, which like, again, I burped, is smart, but also so dumb. But it's like almost smart. It's right there. But after a few days, Gypsy starts to feel guilty and does the weirdest guilty child thing of all time, and apparently has Nick post on Dee Dee and Gypsy's joint Facebook page a status that says, "The bitch is dead." This is when all of their Facebook friends are like, what's going on? Have you been hacked? Like, are you watching a TV show? Who's dead? Then they go on to comment later on in the post, I fucking slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fucking loud. So now the neighbors are like, oh my God, you know, something, we need to go over and we need to check on their home. So the neighbors go, they call the police, they go to the home, nothing looks out of order. The police get a warrant and are able to go into the home. This is where they find Dee Dee's body in her bed, and they can clearly see she's been stabbed multiple times. But the weird part is they also find Gypsy's wheelchair in her room, all of her meds and like feeding tube liquids and oxygen that she needed to travel with in the home, as well as their car that had like her wheelchair lift and stuff in it. What was really weird about the home is it said that it was almost like Dee Dee was like a super crazy hoarder, except for the medicine cabinet, which was actually like a pantry, like a closet. That's how many meds were in there. And it was so perfectly organized with like every single med that she had this poor girl on. So at first it's believed, obviously, that Gypsy has been kidnapped. So a random like GoFundMe page is started for obviously Dee Dee's funeral and what they suspect could end up being Gypsy's funeral. This is when that neighbor that Gypsy confided in went to the police and was like, hey, I don't know if this helps. She's got a secret online boyfriend. She's got a secret Facebook page her mom doesn't know about. Maybe she met like an online predator, or maybe it's this guy. They use like the IP address and something, I I can barely work a camera, I don't know, but they can get into her like Facebook page and they find like all of the messages where it says like I want to kill my mom and the plan and the IP address that shows they're in Wisconsin. This is when the police make a statement like don't donate to the GoFundMe, and they make a statement along the lines of like things aren't always as they appear. And everyone freaks out. They slowly start to find out, and it breaks in the media that Gypsy was never sick. She could walk, she could eat, and she was a victim of Munchausen by proxy. Obviously, Gypsy and Nick are found and arrested. When they're arrested, Nick confesses like to everything. You know, he's like, I did it for love. She wanted me to do it. She needed my help. I was saving her. I'm her knight in shining armor. It was the only way to get her out. When they take Gypsy in for questioning, they're like, your mom's dead. And she does literally like look up the videos of her, like the worst acting job of all time. Just like freaking out, like sobbing, crying, like, no, she's not. I can't believe it. And finally, like the detective is like, girl, Nick told us everything. And you walked in here. Like, chill, give it up. So obviously she, for the most part, confesses, but puts most of it on Nick. But in her defense, like, she has no spectrum and no idea of like what's wrong and what's right, what you can do, what she can do. Like, you have to imagine this girl like wasn't allowed to walk or eat. Like, imagine your abuser is medicating you to the point where you can't communicate, like you're drooling. She is putting things in a feeding tube, like, I don't know. And because of that, they're like, how the hell can we punish this girl? And obviously, given like the years of abuse and the circumstances and how it was done, and that she technically didn't kill her mother, they take the death penalty and life without parole off the table, as they should. After some back and forth, Gypsy decides to take the plea deal of second-degree murder and spend 10 years in prison. I personally don't agree with it. I think that Gypsy needed to go like to a facility. Like, for example, she was on like children's Pedialyte feeding liquid until she was well into her 20s. So when she went into county jail and was able to like eat food, she gained 14 pounds. Like, she was so malnourished and like messed up. She gained 14 pounds. She was able to like get all the meds out of her system and talk and tell them what was going on, but was treated like a criminal, which she like half and half was. I don't know. So then, after what felt like way too long, Nick was finally sentenced to life without parole in 2019. Mind you, this happened in 2015. This was another really hard one for people to figure out because he did have dissociative personality disorder and autism. Because of that, he really did believe that he was saving Gypsy's life, and in a way, some people think he was saving her life. But he did like repeatedly stab a woman. Potato. I don't know. What would you have done? So life in prison was kind of gonna be what happened, no matter what. But Gypsy has like a ton of communication with her father and her stepmother. And it's said that she is going to get out, you know, without any issues at the age of 32. She was engaged. I don't know if she still is. It's kind of hard to find out if they're still together. But she was engaged to like a totally different new guy. And I think that when she gets out, she's wanting to go live with her father and her stepmother. And hopefully she does. And she gets the help that she needs. But like, the system fucking failed her. All right, guys, our 40 minutes is up. And Amazon storefront. Honestly, those smell really good. But I really want to know what you guys think about this case, because like, I believe Gypsy was guilty, but like, was she guilty? And also, if they hadn't done this to Dee Dee, would Dee Dee have eventually killed Gypsy? It also should be noted that Dee Dee ended up being cremated, and they offered her ashes to multiple different people in her family, and most of them said, they didn't want them, and her stepmom and her father, I believe, said that she got what she deserved. And apparently they just got her ashes and flushed them down the toilet, which is like, you have to be like a special kind of awful for your family to do that. And they tried to say the whole time that something was going on with Gypsy, but nobody believed them, and I don't know. But I do want to take a second at the end of this episode to kind of talk about Munchausen by proxy, because it's not always, and it's actually usually not to the caliber in which Gypsy suffered from. It's normally not nearly as bad and is very common with small children and the elderly. And it needs to be taken just as seriously as Gypsy's case. So please, please believe little kids, believe the elderly, or just don't believe their caregiver. I don't know. But it's very real. We need to talk about it. And it's not always at the point in which Gypsy's was. And here are our finished dog treat biscuit cookies. I don't know. Sven loves them. I know, they kind of look like piles of shit, but your dog will love them, and thank you for them. Be sure to comment below future crimes you want me to cover and some recipes you want me to try. Let me know what you think about this case and if you have anything to add to it. Thank you for cooking with me today and letting me tell you this insane story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching Spooky Sunday Dinners. I am still singing. I still can't afford a theme song. No, that's dog food. That's dog food. I'm gonna go feed these to Sven. Not going too bad.